Hello dudes, Axel here. Welcome to another Axel Tech video. So, Valve just dropped a bombshell of an announcement and has pretty much just become my favorite video game company ever. They were already kind of up there, but now they're just like way up there. So, as we switch over to my desktop view here, Valve announced just yesterday introducing a new version of Steam Play, which originally Steam Play was how they had it to where if you buy a game on one platform, you have it available on whatever operating system you are running from. So if you buy, say, Cook Serve Delicious on Windows, if you then switch to Linux and you still want to play it, since you bought it on Steam, with Steam Play being a thing, you were still able to play the Linux version if the developer made that version available for Linux. What they have done is, with Steam Play, they've now expanded it to integrate their new compatibility layer called Proton, which is based on Wine. It is their own distribution of Wine, which, as they mention here, they have been supporting Wine and other existing compatibility products, and so with Proton, where is the... yeah. So as a result of all the work they've been doing for the past couple years, such as supporting Vulkan, Wine, they released a beta of the Steam client today to all Linux users, including a modified distribution of Wine called Proton to provide compatibility with Windows games titles. So, Windows games with no Linux version currently available can now be installed and run directly from the Steam client, complete with native Steamworks and OpenVR support. DirectX 11 and 12 implementations are now based on Vulkan, resulting in improved game compatibility and reduced performance impact. Full screen support has been improved. Improved game controller support for multi-threaded games has been improved because they're, for those who do know, the Wine, more the technical side of Wine things, they're using the eSync patch sets. So that's good. This is a list of the games that they have currently identified that work great with Proton. So we got things like Doom, Doom VFR, Fallout Shelter. I've heard that actually does work fairly well. Some Mountain Blade games, Nier Automata, Pity the Heist, Star Wars Battlefront 2. Is that the original Battlefront 2? Yes, because the new one would not be on Steam. Right. Tekken, Tropico. So, fairly small list of games they've confirmed work right now, but this is an initial beta. They are still working on it. And while it is in beta, the whitelisted games will not be officially marked as supported on Linux. So, no idea how long this beta period is going to last, but just keep in mind, it is still in beta, but they are working on improving things. Now, it is fully open source as well, Proton is, so that's good. So far, I've only tested 3 games in my library. 2 of them I didn't really expect to work, and they didn't. They didn't launch. But I also kind of messed up with making sure my system was ready for it. So don't be like me. Actually make sure that you read the requirements. So if we go to the quick start instructions thing here, that will take us away from Valve's website, or from Steam's website. I guess it's technically still Valve's website, isn't it? Anyway, yeah, so it'll take you to the Proton prereqs.md. So the prerequisites for running it, if you're running, say, Ubuntu or something like that, right now, the newest titles available on Linux with Steam Play require cutting-edge drivers that are not distributed with the latest Ubuntu 18.04. So, you will need to make sure your drivers are up to date. With NVIDIA, you need version 396.51, which Canonical has a repository for third-party drivers, so you can get it from there. Then AMD and Intel, there is also a PPA for the latest AMD/Intel Mesa drivers. So that is all well and good as well. In addition, running VR, you want to do that stuff. Now, on my case, I already have pretty much up-to-date drivers because I'm running Solus. Although, if we go down here, we don't have 18.2 on Solus yet, so who knows how soon that'll happen, but I am at least good for the DirectX 11 part of things. And the thing that I did not realize was down here the FD limit requirements thing. So because Proton uses the async patch set, it can require a higher file decryptor limit per process than what is set up by default in some distributions, which I found out was the case with Solus. So that is possible that caused some issues for me not being able to launch a couple of the games properly, slash one of the games not working as it should have. So, okay, let me actually talk about that for a second. I am going to, cut at some point here, test again now that I've fixed that setting, and then report back to you guys in a second. But Subnautica was one of the games I tested. When running standard wine proper, just regular wine, that worked almost perfectly. Running it through Steam Play with Proton here, the life pod was missing, as was my player model. So that was kind of weird. But yeah. I've also heard some other mentions that compatibility using Proton seems a little worse than regular wine right now, but I don't know. It might just be some edge cases, but either way, keep in mind, it is in beta still. It is still in beta. They are working on it. They will probably be constantly improving it. So I still see this as a good thing, but we'll get more on the is this actually a good thing aspect a little bit later. So anyway, if you are not running Ubuntu, SteamOS, or Debian, you'll want to look at this. This is on the wine README stuff. So now keep in mind, actually changing this setting will require command line stuff. If you're not comfortable with that, well, welcome to Linux. That's a thing that happens a lot. Don't worry, it's not scary. It's just typing things into a terminal. It's fine. It's not as scary as it seems, I promise. Anyway, so what you're going to need to check is if you are not on Debian or an Ubuntu derivative, because apparently Debian and Ubuntu derivatives already have a reasonable limit for this file decryptor thing, which is interesting that Solus doesn't, but maybe they just didn't think it was an issue, because yeah, so by default it limits a process to 4096 file decryptors, which was probably reasonable back in the 90s, but isn't really anymore. So anyway, now first it mentions to raise the limit, you'll want to edit this file right here. Why am I zoomed out again? Hold on. You zoom back in. This file right here, etc security limits.conf, it mentions that first, but then it follows by saying on distributions using systemd, which most popular distros are nowadays. Kind of weird they didn't mention that first. But anyway, let me go back to my terminal here. So it'll mention edit, so it'll tell you to edit, it'll say that is overridden by systemd's own settings. So you would then run ulimit ulimit -h, capital HN, that a little bigger for you guys, and that'll return with, if you haven't changed this yet, it'll probably be 4096 as its default. As you can see, I did just change mine before this video. But I also forgot to try those games again before I started the recording, because I'm dumb. Don't worry, like I said, I will retest and then let you guys know how that went at the end of this video. Anyway, after you run that, it's a lower number, of course. So if you're on systemd, you'll want to go into etc systemd system.conf. I forgot, hold on. Usually, if you're on most distributions, you'll of course have to do it with sudo, and most distributions pre-install nano, so do sudo sudo nano etc systemd system.conf. You'll need to enter your password, and if you scroll down, you will eventually find this line right here. There will be a comment at the start of it like that. Delete that, go to the end of the line, and put in the number 1048576. I'm going to not save that because it didn't actually change anything, but you will want to save that with Control-O, enter, then Control-X. Anyway, you do that in both the system.conf and user.conf. Then you run sudo system control daemon re-exec. You'll want to enter that, and it'll ask for your password again, and then you restart, and then after you check, it should return that number. So, tiny bit convoluted, but it's not too bad. Well, okay, convoluted if you're new to Linux, but it's really not that bad. It's very simple. If you're a newcomer to Linux, don't be afraid of the command line. Yes, graphical interfaces are very nice, but don't be afraid of the command line. Trust me. Anyway, with all that done, like I said I was going to do, well, okay, before I get into that, they also announced that they were, in fact, where was it? Valve employs the developer of DXVK. That was one thing that a lot of people were like, whoa, this is getting a huge amount of progress so fast. What's going on? And it's like, oh, there you go. Valve hired the guy. So that makes sense. So that tells me that Valve is definitely super behind this. And, you know, hopefully this will be the tipping point to help get more and more people on Linux. That'd be pretty cool. Because the more people we have, the more stuff we get. And that can be a bad thing, but it can also be a very good thing. Anyway, like I said I was going to do, I am going to retest those games I mentioned earlier now that I fixed the thing for the async stuff. So I'll be back in a bit. I'll let you know how that went. Okay, so this is being recorded the day after the previous session, and this is also being re-recorded of another session of this because it's constantly new information because this is just going, things are going so fast. Okay, so first off, I did retest those games after applying the patches. I retested them today after there were updates to Steam Play. 2 of them did not launch at all, which I kind of didn't really expect them to because I'm pretty sure they have DRM and not like DRM that tends to work with Wine. So, meh to those. Although, one of them in question, I have seen posted that on the Wine app database does work with normal Wine. That one was Sword Art Online Fatal Bullet. That apparently does work with normal Wine, but it is not working with Steam Play. I also tested Subnautica, and that on normal Wine works perfectly. With Steam Play, for some reason, like some models are missing when you launch it. But with the update they did today, they previously for some, like accidentally left DXVK in debug mode. They fixed that with an update today, so Subnautica does run a lot better, at least. But there's still models missing for some reason where that was not an issue in regular Wine. So that's kind of weird. But anyway, other than that, some more tidbits. I forgot to mention that there's the main reason I re-recorded this. Another great thing with Proton and Steam Play now is if you purchase a game from the Linux client and you're playing it through Proton, it will still show to the developer as a Linux sale, even though you're technically playing the Windows version through Wine. So I don't know why I air quoted that. It is Wine. Anyway, so it will still show to the developer that it's a Linux sale. So there have been people understandably worried that this might mean there will be fewer Linux native games. But what I'm hoping is, you know, people will see, oh, hey, people are suddenly buying and playing our game on Linux, even though we don't have a Linux version. Yay, Steam Play happened. So some people might see that as, well, if that happens, they're probably not going to bother doing a Linux native port. At the same time, even if they don't go all the way, maybe it'll still encourage more developers to start using Vulkan. Because games that use Vulkan, take Doom 2016 for example, that apparently runs perfectly. I don't have it, so I can't test it myself, but so I've heard that runs like perfectly as if it was made for Linux, and that uses Vulkan. So that is fantastic. So maybe this will encourage more developers to use Vulkan, hopefully, although probably less likely, but hopefully also using either less DRM or none at all, preferably. But I don't see people actually ditching DRM, unfortunately. I hope they do, but something tells me that's not going to happen very easily. Vulkan support is probably more likely, I hope. Because at the very least, if they do that, then Steam Play and Proton won't have to translate the DirectX stuff to Vulkan, so that'll help with performance, and that'll be fantastic. So, other than that, while it might mean less Linux native games, at the same time, this could help push a lot of people away from Windows and onto Linux. And, the more people we have, the more games, the more software we get for Linux, and that is overall, hopefully, going to be a good thing. There could be downsides to that, but overall, I do think this is a good thing. But, as always, let me know what you guys think, either down in the comments below or over at me on social media. You can find me on Twitter /Axel94, twitter.com/Axel94, and also at linuxrocks.online /@Axel. That is a Mastodon instance. You can find links to all those in the description below. Till next time, this has been Axel. Thank you guys for watching. I will see you guys in the next one.